A very good morning and welcome. You're watching Political Spectrum and we're live on Spectrum Television. A very big hello from me. I am Raymond Ita, putting you through all the latest, biggest political news stories and events making the rounds across. Continues to the February 25 polls. It's basically 12 days to go before Nigerians are to the polls to cast their vote for preferred political parties as well as their candidates. Well, in the course of the program, we'll do well to bring you up to speed for the day's biggest news and political stories and events making the rounds across the country. But yes, aftermath of the Supreme Court ruling that vacated a further continuation of the Central Bank of Nigeria's policy of the new Naira redesign, which has occasioned some level of hardship on Nigerians. The big question everyone is asking is, to what end are we going to see this impasse continue as Nigerians, of course, continue to remain in confusion over the fact that the federal government or the CBN is yet to speak on this matter after the Supreme Court ruling came up last week. As much as the court has said, let's wait up until February 15 until we hear the case formally. For now, of course, the status quo would likely stay, and that means the February 10 deadline initially set by the CBN as a date for Nigerians to effect the swap of the old Naira notes in favor of the new ones, of course, is no longer valid. So that means, of course, that both the old and the new notes would run concurrently. Of course, the federal government has been advised by the Council of State following the meeting with President Buhari last week to ensure that new notes are in circulation. We'll talk about all of that later on in the program, as we'll be joined by Barrister Nsika Akai, as a legal practitioner and a public affairs analyst, who will be bearing his thoughts on this issue and the political intricacies surrounding the Supreme Court ruling and the next step the federal government is likely to take. But let's begin the program, shall we, with today's latest political updates, and we're starting with the People's Democratic Party, whose presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar has urged the Department of State Services (DSS) and the police to invite Femi Fani-Kayode, a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, and to grill him over the allegation of a coup plot leveled against him ahead of the 2023 elections. Now, the former Minister of Aviation had claimed that the former Vice President and top military generals had a secret meeting last week. Now, in response, the Defense Headquarters denied planning to scuttle the general elections, reiterating the loyalty of the armed forces to the Constitution and civilian authority. Now, Atiku requested the DSS and the police to get the details of the alleged coup from Fani-Kayode, who is, of course, the Director of Special Projects and New Media of the Tinubu-Shettima Presidential Campaign Council. Now, a statement by Atiku's Special Assistant on Public Communications, Frank Shaibu, said the insinuations of a plan to overthrow an elected government should not be taken lightly. Now, noting that such a plot is treason, an offense that carries a death penalty, by the way, the aide commended the Nigerian military for effectively waving aside what it described as Fani-Kayode's barefaced lie. Meanwhile, the Department of State Services (DSS) has invited the spokesperson for the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Femi Fani-Kayode, over allegations of a coup plot ahead of the February election. Kayode confirmed the invitation by the DSS in a statement this morning, noting that he would be honoring the invitation today. I recall that Kayode, who is a former Minister of Aviation, had claimed that the People's Democratic Party (PDP's) presidential candidate and top military generals in the country had a secret meeting last week. And he alleged that the meeting may be a part of an agenda to provoke a coup d'etat and establish a new and unconstitutional order in the country. However, in response, the Defense Headquarters had denied planning to scuttle the general elections, reiterating the loyalty of the armed forces to the Constitution and civilian authority. Now moving on, the Nigeria Governors Forum, NGF, has warned that the continuous scarcity of the 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira new notes may lead to an economic recession as well as severe food inflation. Now, the forum in a communique issued at the end of its meeting lamented that though the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, had said the federal government would comply with the order of the Supreme Court nullifying the February 10 deadline for the validity of the freehold notes, Nigerians have not experienced any change so far. Now, consequently, the forum called on the federal government and the CBN to respect the rule of law and to listen to the voice of reason expressed by Nigerians and several other stakeholders, including the Council of State, before the damage to the economy becomes too great to fix by the next administration. Back here in the state, members of the defunct DIG Udomikbodom APC Senatorial Campaign Organization have disassociated themselves from the purported endorsement of Senator Godswill Akpabio. Also, members comprising Uwem Udoma, a former Deputy Speaker of the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly, and ex-Campaign Director General Godwin Etowokban, former DG, former Secretary General of the campaign team, as well as other members of the technical committee, who insisted that while they respect the constitutional rights of their former principal to endorse whoever he wishes in the February 25, 2023 Akwa Ibom Northwest senatorial election, but have noted that such a decision remains his personal decision and that of his family, and not the position of the campaign organization. Well, according to them, when the campaign organization was constituted, the official decision and the position of the campaign organization was that it will support and endorse the call for a back federal constituency to produce the next senator for Ikorekpene Senatorial District, being the only federal constituency that has never produced a senator since 1960. But they submitted that they stand by their earlier decision to campaign, mobilize, lobby, as well as galvanize the people of the area to vote only for a candidate of a back federal constituency extraction, and as such they will not and will never adopt or endorse any other candidate who is not from the federal constituency. Now, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project (SERAP) has asked the International Criminal Court (ICC) to promptly seek authorization from the ICC chambers to commence an investigation into the situation in Nigeria in relation to the growing cases of pre-election violence. In a statement, SERAP's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, warned that if cases of pre-election violence were not addressed, it may escalate and lead to post-election violence in the country. Well, the rights groups wrote a petition sent to the ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, where it urged Khan to urgently send the ICC legal team to Nigeria to promote free and fair elections in the country, as well as gather potential proof of election-related violence before, during, and after the general elections. Now, the petition followed reports of election-related violence in several states, including Lagos, Rivers, and Kaduna. It alleged that over 4,000 cases of violent attacks and 11,000 fatalities were reported across the country between the 1st of January 2022 and the 3rd of February 2023 alone. Now, the All Progressives Congress (APC) has thwarted reports making the rounds that the governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Buni, was embarrassed and stoned in the Gashua local government area of the state. Now, reports had emerged earlier that some supporters of the Senate President Ahmed Lawan had disrupted and stoned Governor Buni at an event organized to celebrate the ruling of the Supreme Court, which named the Senate President as the authentic senatorial candidate of the ruling APC for the Yobe North senatorial seat in the National Assembly election. However, reacting to the said attack on the governor, the APC campaign council in the state said there was no such event as reported in the media. While speaking at a press conference in Damaturu, the state capital, the campaign director general, Senator Muhammad Hassan, said there was nothing like stoning as reported by a section of the media. While also speaking, Maman Mohammed, the Director General of the Press and Media Affairs, the Governor Buni, said he needed to respond to the false, alarming and precarious reports, as he put it, to avoid misleading the general public. And on the last note, the chief spokesman of the All Progressives Congress presidential campaign election, or the APC-PCC chief spokesman, stated this in a tweet via his verified Twitter handle yesterday. Keyamo said it's safe to assume that they now agree that the APC flag bearer has no ruling party advantage in the election. Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Festus Keyamo, however, advised the opposition to get ready to take their defeat in good faith. Those are the day's biggest news stories and events making the rounds. We go to the more pressing issues when we come back from this break as we seek to address the impasse that has been occasioned by a Supreme Court ruling last week which ordered the federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria to discontinue from effecting the February 10 deadline when Nigerians were expected to swap the old notes for the new ones. An issue that has raised contentious debate around the country in the last few days and weeks owing to the scarcity of the new Naira notes. But the big question is, as much as the Supreme Court has fixed February 15 for hearing of the suits filed by three governors of Kaduna, Kogi, as well as Zamfara State, the big question Nigerians have been asking in the face of the fact that the presidency or the CBN is yet to issue a statement to that effect is whether the new and the old notes can continue running concurrently. So, the state of the nation after the Supreme Court ruling will form the basis of our discussion when we come back from this break. Stay with us. Political Spectrum will return.
Stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Ibro.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, lordship.
My lord, sorry.
Country Nigeria, legally speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigeria. From issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Ibro.
He did not.
My Lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my
this
Lord.
an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding your Lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally.
The Central Bank of Nigeria extended deadline for the use of old Naira notes. Join us as we sample opinion on the availability of the new Naira notes.
Despite the extension of the deadline for the circulation of old 1,000 Naira, 500 empty across the country. The few that had the new Naira notes had very long queues, with customers standing for many hours. Cash in ATMs was exhausted.
I came here around 9 o'clock in the morning, and I have been here till now. Till now, nobody attended to us. I've been coming in, going out with cars, black cars, coming in, going out, going out. Nobody attended to us.
The message that I saw that shouldn't we eat again, he said we should talk to the manager.
You have been here since morning to get my money, and CBN reports is that this new policy that there's lodging my money now to get just 5,000 naira. I couldn't since morning. I've been here. Nobody attend to me. Is it a crime? Is it a crime? Is it a crime to open account? Is it a crime to put my money in the bank?
I came here in the morning. There were a lot of people around, so I just left, and I went to other banks to see if I will even get space. It's still the same thing in all the banks. So I came back here, and for past 1.5 hours, I have been waiting on the line, and all of a sudden the money finished. And then the bank, nobody has come out to do anything about it.
Traders in markets and many business operators in Akwa Ibom State capital have refused to accept old Naira notes from customers for fear of recording losses in their operations. Traders demand that the Central Bank of Nigeria and the federal still have the old notes, and they are finding it nearly impossible to deposit them in the banks due to congestion and overcrowding.
I'm just coming out from the bank. I went to get money. The crowd was too much and I didn't have any money on me. So coming out, I had to trek. I went to the PG. So when you want to get something from these local people who don't understand the system works. They will reject the money. They'll say they are looking for the new note, and the bank are not issuing the new note. And besides, you can't even get to the bank. The crowd there alone is too much. People are not able to get money. People said, like the people I met today, they said they've been here for the last 3 days, since Monday. They've not been able to get even 1,000. People are shedding tears. Like yesterday, I had someone collapse.
1,000 Naira new notes is charged 1,000 Naira, while old notes attracts between 200 Naira and 500 Naira. According to some of the point of sales operators, 10% of charges on every transaction were due to insufficient circulation of the redesigned Naira notes and the stress involved in obtaining them from the ATMs.
There's no money from business center now, like supermarket, filling station like that. When you go there, you have to buy the money. You still deposit the money for them.
Some customers said they had queued at different ATMs belonging to different banks, but could not withdraw any money because the notes were exhausted before it was their turn. That said, even an attempt to withdraw new notes at the counter did not yield positive results, as they were informed that banks were instructed not to make over-the-counter payments of new notes but fill their ATMs with only redesigned notes. Meanwhile, banks operators have refused to refill their machines after exhaustion.
We are saying that they should deposit more new money since November, December, and then this January. But as I'm hearing from my fellow colleagues, they said they are still paying the old note. It will not help matters.
Since the CBN made this announcement concerning this new notes and when it was going to stop, even as at last 2 weeks, they were still dispensing old notes. Is that even right? Is that how it's supposed to be? As at last week, they were still dispensing old notes. Who does that? And now you expect that by now everyone is supposed to be having the new notes. It can never happen. It's not happen. It's still the same thing. It's still the same thing right now. I thought that is actually where my anger is, because the banks have actually failed in a way. The banks have failed. It is not the central bank, but they know how the Nigeria situation is. But they have really failed, because they would have done it well. They would have made it mandatory that all banks, as at so date, instead of giving us the citizens that we will stop the old notes in circulation so date. They would have said that all banks should stop giving old notes at a particular date or a particular time. That would have been the best thing that they would have done. But instead, it's us. Everything lies on us. We are the ones that will suffer. So even as at last week, banks were dispersing old notes, and this is where we are now.
I've gone to the bank where I've seen they are still giving out old notes, even inside the banking hall.
The banks are seeing us. Everyone is seeing us. We are standing here. They know. They've never even come to tell us if they put more money into the ATM or not. Nothing. They just left us. We are so many here, but they've all gone. So we are still waiting.
I left the house inside 8 o'clock this morning, and I came here to withdraw 10,000 Naira. I stood on the line for almost 3 hours, and when it got to my turn, I will discover that only 200,000 was deposited in the ATM, and the money finished. Up to now, I'm still here waiting to get money to go and buy something that I needed to buy.
I can come to a bank where I'm banking since 8 o'clock and not get a cash that I was deposit. Even when they pay salary, no money for someone to withdraw. I'm just tired because I don't even know what this Nigeria is turning into. If I thought that I have money, they said that we should deposit money, that we will not a certain date. Old note will be elapsed. Then up to today, what I deposit, I cannot take it. It's in fact, I don't even know what to say. Paying my money inside, then I cannot withdraw. I don't have access to that money again.
Business operators, traders, and other individuals are asking for further extension of the deadline set by the CBN.
I think they should give it to like April, so that people will start getting used to the system and start arranging themselves and prepare for what is coming. Because, I mean, from January till, okay, they started last year, but people didn't really believe on it. Now, when they started this January till this 10 February, the duration is too short. They should give, especially the rural women who are in the village, who don't know anything about ATM and the bank. It's difficult for them. Do you understand? So I think they should extend it to at least 10 of April, ending of April.
What I notice is if you look at all the ATM stands, you see the pressure there in the crowd, and it's the masses are the ones suffering it. Because those are the ones that use this money on a daily basis. So I feel they should extend it. That's just the best thing. They have to extend it because whenever you see ATM stands, you see so much people. I remember I spent over 2 hours just to withdraw 20,000 naira.
I have so many persons that do not know, that have not even touched this currency, not to even have an enlightenment that the currency will be changed. Even when they have the enlightenment, they do not have access to the new currency because of what we are witnessing in some of the banks today. Because as I'm talking to you, I want to tell you that if you go to any of the banks to get this new currency, it will be difficult, even for us that are living in this urban area of the state, not to talk about those that are living in the rural area. So I think it's pertinent for them to increase the time of that they will stop collecting the old money. Even though they will stop collecting the amount of the money, I think they should make a provision that those that are still with the old money can still return it to the bank, even when those money cannot be used in buying things. But there should be a provision so this set of persons will not be on a total loss.
Due to the unavailability of the redesigned notes, the country is experiencing lots of protests across different states. The Central Bank of Nigeria has directed commercial banks to commence payment of the redesigned Naira notes over the counter, subject to a maximum daily payout limit of 20,000 Naira. This was disclosed in a statement by the Director of Corporate Communication, CBN, Osita Nwanosibi. It said that the Apex Bank will collaborate with the Nigerian Police, Federal Inland Revenue Service, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit to prosecute abusers and sellers of the Naira. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court of Nigeria has restrained the federal government from implementing the February 10th deadline of the old 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes to stop being legal tender. The court further held that the federal government, Central Bank of Nigeria, and commercial banks must not continue with the deadline pending the determination of a notice in respect to the issue on February 15th. Crowd are seen at the ATM to enable customers withdraw and get access to these new Naira notes. I am Esther Otoyo. Enjoy the rest of our program on Spectrum Television. The hike in the price of premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol, by independent marketers in Akwa Ibom State has necessitated calls for concern by the residents of the state. Transport fares in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State capital, have soared to 100% as long queues resurface in fuel stations, rising fears over fuel scarcity and hiking pump prices. Distances that Commercial Plaza to Ikodikpene Road, hitherto charged 50 Naira, now cost 100 Naira. Same with other distances which were 100 Naira, now 200 Naira, an increase of 100%. Similarly, a trip from Ibom Plaza to Akwa Ibom Transport Company Park in a minibus, which used to cost 100 Naira, has been increased to 150 Naira. This is said to be the result of the hike in fuel pump prices, now 300 Naira per litre. Tricycle operators, popularly called keke, now charge between 500 Naira and 700 Naira for a drop, as against 300 Naira before the fuel scarcity. Some respondents says that passengers have no option except those who wish to walk down to their destinations.
Before, from where I'm living to Secretariat, I used to pay like 100 Naira. But now I have to pay up to 250 if I can get to my office. Going back, then I used to pay 200, but now I'm paying 500. It's too much on me. Okay, I'm returning my children to school on Sunday. Now, I used to pay like 500 to 600 to where they are schooling. Now I'm going to pay up to 2,000.
From here to Economy Man, some drivers are collecting 150 Naira, some are collecting 100 Naira.
Meanwhile, aside from NNPC mega stations, that sells at the approved pump price of 180 Naira, other independent marketers sells at 270 Naira per litre, some 300 Naira per litre, and this has affected the price of food items. According to some respondents,
The government has not increased salaries, but food and fuel prices keep increasing.
The distance that we were paying 50 naira before is now 100 naira. The one we are paying 100 naira before is now 200 naira. Some will even consider you to collect 150. And yet, they've not increased salary. Most people have not been paid. So where do you expect people to get? Watch out the road now. How many people are there? Today is working day. But how many people are plying the road? Very few. Because there's no money. The money they are paying for salary is not even enough for feeding, not to talk of transport.
Most of them, they have not increased their pay, and things makes life very, very difficult.
You see, everything is hinged on the fuel and transportation. So because of the hike in fuel, it has affected the transportation of both human and goods and services. So because the traders having to buy will suffer the brunt for it. So even commuters, a place that was normally charged between, the fare was maybe 100 naira, is now tripled to 100, 200, 300 like that. So it is telling on the poor masses. And the cash
Regulatory Authority has sealed a total of 13 filling stations in Akwa Ibom State for dispensing petrol above to begin station-to-station inspection from Tuesday, January 3rd, to ensure that marketers who had access to the 1.5 million liters of petrol given by the state government comply with the directives of government to sell at approved pump price to the fuel hike, and solicit government intervention to checkmate the activities of the independent marketers with an effective task force.
If government is not aware of it, they would have sent task force to all the filling stations to go and
committee that will go to the filling station and check if the fuel price is normal. Everybody is selling at the same amount. No, this one is selling 300, this one is selling 500, this one is selling the way they like.
They don't sell it the normal. Sure, say everything go back to all normal. They say they will bring out task force to be moving from one filling station to the other to look into
2 years that the government said they are going to send all the filling stations. They started, as at this time here you are talking now, they are still selling at the rate of 300. Some are even selling.
So we are appealing all to the authorities, the NPC, the government at all levels to intervene and get this issue resolved for the best interest of the public. So every other person knows that beginning of the year is very hard and it's always hard.
The continuous increase in fuel pump prices has resulted in fewer vehicles now seen on the roads, as few private vehicle owners and commercial vehicle operators cannot afford the product. Consequently, some passengers resort to trekking, while many have moderated their movements due to the high cost of transportation being experienced in the state.
Yeah, now some people, you see queue. Minibus is queuing here, no passengers to carry. Because now before you go to places, you calculate. You not just go to places that
people are suffering, most especially common people are suffering from the transportation. We do collect, formerly we used to collect 100 naira from Plaza to Ekoim and Junction, but now we are collecting 150. Then short distance we are collecting 100 naira due to the high price. Before we used to buy it 200, one something, but now we buy it 300, 320, depending on the station that we are going. So that is how we go about it.
Meanwhile, Mfonobong Nathaniel has considered falling back to the use of bicycles as a means of transportation, while others
Not safe for a bicycle, like hello, because that's the next thing. Because we are being pushed into a corner right now. That's going to be the next best thing out there is your bicycle with your 500 naira lubrication oil always in your bag, right? The fuel price has increased, has affected the cost of transport drastically, and so much. Like from point A to point B before that was 50 naira, is now 100 naira, it's double the price. Right?
My fear is that school will soon resume. So how about students from very poor homes whose parents will not be able to afford the high cost of transportation, so that it will even affect the educational and 20 naira.
School where won't start, how children go take reach school? Where go be say they go fit obtain classes? Because fuel scarce like this, to come put food, come put fuel, some parents go decide say make their students stay home. Where we say no go good.
Transportation actually is bad. It's bad.
And if you see, me, I heard that fuel has been reduced, but they're still selling for the price they are selling. From here to the junction, the drivers will collect from you 150. Before we normally used to pay 100 naira. So let the fuel price to come down so that to be good for the Nigerian citizen and everybody.
Long queues are seen at the mega filling stations, with cars and trucks sneaking several meters. Residents of Uyo, Akwa Ibom State capital, solicit with the government to commence station-to-station inspection as promised.
I am Esther Otoyo. Enjoy the rest of our programs on Spectrum TV.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Ibro.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned. If you're just joining us, this is Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. I am Raymond Ater, and a quick reminder that we're counting down towards the conduct of the February 25 as well as the March 11 gubernatorial elections in the country. Well, we had to play you those reports and clips to give you a vivid example of the current situation across the country, with the hardship occasioned on Nigerians by the Naira redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, who, by the way, were ordered to stay into confusion. Well, joining us to give us legal perspectives on this issue, as far as the Supreme Court ruling is concerned, and what, of course, the federal government can do. Joining us from back here in Akwa Ibom State is Barrister Nsikak Akai, is a legal practitioner as well. Good morning to you, Barrister Akai, and welcome to Political Spectrum. You can hear me, Barrister? Good morning to you. The Supreme Court ruling last week threw everyone into confusion, because right now Nigerians do not know what is the state of things at the moment. The Supreme Court ordered the federal government and the CBN to discontinue from further implementing the new Naira redesign policy. But after the ruling last week and following the meeting of President Buhari and the Council of State, no one seems to know what to do next. While there's an understanding that perhaps, can you just give us a brief fillers on what the occasion of the Supreme Court ruling actually means for Nigerians going forward? Do we have to wait until February 15, as the Supreme Court says, that they will actually comply with the Supreme Court ruling or not? All right, looks like we're still having issues connecting with Barrister Nsikak Akai. We sincerely apologize for the poor quality of the line, but we'll do well to try and reach him again before we draw curtains on today's edition of the program, just so we get a good insight into the latest ruling by the Supreme Court and what it means for Nigerians, because as buttressed earlier on, the state of confusion across the country is one that is not pleasing to most Nigerians. Many have said the federal government, either Mr. President or the CBN governor, needs to address Nigerians properly on what meeting with the president last week. These are things we don't know. But we have to take another short breather in the hope that when we come back, we'll establish contact with Barrister Akai, who is still on standby, by the way, to talk to us. And that will be when we come back from this break. Please stay with us.
Allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. we have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and
enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did. Not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord,
Amazing country, Nigeria, legally speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Welcome back. Many thanks for staying with us. You're watching Political Spectrum. Minutes trying to link up with our guest. Thankfully, we have joining us live now over the line, Barrister Ntika Aka is a legal practitioner and a public and political affairs analyst. He joins us live on Political Spectrum. Good morning to you, Barrister Aka. Welcome to the program. Hello, Barrister, if you can hear me. Good morning to you.
Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, we can hear you clearly now. Welcome to Political Spectrum. We have to apologize for the poor quality of the line a short while earlier. But let's get straight to it now. You followed up on the Supreme Court ruling last week that deterred the federal government through the C1s. The disappointment with this policy is that the new notes have hardly been in circulation, occasioning some level of hardships on non-jigs. And after that meeting, the only clarification we have now is that the Council of State advised Mr. President to, ensure a circulation of the new notes, meaning print more of the new notes. But we still don't have a communication yet from the presidency or the CBN whether the February 10 deadline is still effective or if they would comply with the Supreme Court's ruling. And this has led to a massive state of confusion across the country. So I'd like to ask you, just give us feelers about the status quo of the Supreme Court's ruling side by side with the federal government's initial deadline. What is the situation of things as we stand?
Well, for me, one of things is that the two notes are running concurrently, side by side, the old and the new Naira denominations. Because making use of the old notes, because as far as law is concerned, the old notes are still legal tenders. There's nothing, demonetizing those old currencies to debate or public discourse. Because as far as the court of the land has made a pronouncement on an issue, has restrained the parties on an issue, the normal course of action is for both sides to maintain the status pending when the court will further assume jurisdiction on that matter, on that subject matter. Not to even talk of, the apex courts in the land. So Nigeria should grow to a level where we expect any sane society, through its executive arm to go against any order validly made by the judicial arm of government. So, to that extent, I am not waiting for the CBN to come up with any communique or any circular or anything to the effect that Nigerians should obey the Supreme Court. No, that will be an invitation to anarchy. The Supreme Court has spoken. Hold the status until Wednesday 15th, when parties will be heard on the merit. Remember that the application that got to the Supreme Court was an ex parte application, which means that only one party was before the court. And that had to do with the three attorneys general, that dragged the federal government of Nigeria to the court. So, based on the affidavit of urgency that they took to the Supreme Court saw the need to maintain the behalf of the federal government of Nigeria. So, to that extent, it is non-negotiable. It's not something we should even debate. The old currencies, by the operation of law, are still legal tenders. Subject, however, to what will come out of the Apex Court on Wednesday, or maybe even beyond Wednesday, because Wednesday, I do not know, but if my experience as a lawyer serves me right, I know that no specific pronouncement might even come up on Wednesday, or let me say, the final determination of that matter may not even be on Wednesday, because parties are going there to argue, exchange their arguments, make arguments, and all of that. So the Supreme Court may have the need to further adjourn the matter. So between now and then, what we should see is that both currencies should keep on running side by side, and this is also in line with the advice of the Council of State, who told Mr. President and the central bank governor, look, it is either you print the new notes and have it in abundance and in circulation.
Lawyers just like you across the country is divided on this issue. While many, of course, agree that the Supreme Court, being the apex court in the country, its decisions have to be obeyed to the letter. There are those who feel the Supreme Court equally erred by not even listening, to the suit that was filed in the first place, while there are others who say they lack the jurisdiction to entertain the case at that level. It's part of the fact that, from our understanding, we're told it's more or less an ex parte injunction. I would like a clarification on that, of course. But juxtaposing the different claims by lawyers across the country, where opinion is divided on this issue, do you feel those who say the Supreme Court lacks the jurisdiction to entertain the case at this stage, do you feel they have a point to prove?
Well, you know that we are lawyers, and lawyers be on the same page. And so this is why you will always have a lawyer speaking for and then have another lawyer speaking against, party against. I may not, and I have really, as a litigation lawyer, I understand the law against sub judice. Okay, so going into the merits of the matter to determine whether the Supreme Court has jurisdiction or it does not have jurisdiction over this matter may not really be what I want to throw myself into. Because, of course, as you know, this is even, the fulcrum of the objection that is being filed by the Learned Attorney General of the Federation. But just in case, what may be the state of the law, I think it's like section 230 that creates the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Sub 2 of that section gives the Supreme Court the powers, for us as lawyers, we call it original jurisdiction, where the Supreme Court has the original jurisdiction, appeal over, matters coming up from various Court of Appeal divisions around the country. But there is this slight exception that allows it against states, or states against the Federation, or the Federation against states. So once, or FG against any or all the states, then the Supreme Court assumes original jurisdiction. So once it has to do with a constitutional matter or issues of constitutional importance, you will have the Supreme Court sit as a full court panel to hear any matter. So, but when it has to do with state or state FG, you must have 7 justices on the bench. And, these are the things that happen in the particular, then, the Supreme Court may have erred in assuming jurisdiction. Then the question would be the federal government. if the contemplation is an agency of the federal, rather what the law envisages to grant jurisdiction to the Supreme Court is for state versus state, or state versus came together to sue the federal government. Then again, I will pose this question. Does the no, the currency, the Naira and the Kobo are all items of the federal government of Nigeria? Okay, maybe we should even come through this other angle after, that poser. The next one is, in its officers, agents, and all those things. So the Central Bank of Nigeria, being an agent, obey the order of the Supreme Court. So whether the Supreme Court eventually will decline jurisdiction or will assume other states that are already before it.
Okay, just because we're wrapping up very quickly, so I'd like to put this across the presidency in this case may have been compromised courtesy of the ruling, because the single discharge of its functions under the Act argue that the CBN's independency may have
any institution of government is subjected to judicial review arbitrarily, so to say, because there is an act that says independence, elaborate interpretation. However, Section 6, corporate, the right to approach a court to seek legal interpretation or determination of any court or any court of the land has the power to question certain actions done by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Understand that some other state governors are intending to join this suit. So in that event, thanks indeed, Barrister Sikak Akai, for joining us on Political Spectrum this morning.
Thank you, my brother. We keep watching the developments as the good policy. The only issue I have with this is all about the implementation.
Interesting thought. Thank you very much once again for joining us. That was Barrister Sikak Akai, legal practitioner, political and public, part of the President's meeting with the Council of States last week, premised by the Supreme Court ruling, has basically left Nigerians in a state of confusion over the weekend, and with some saying it completely flouts the Supreme Court's directive that both the old and the new notes, Kaduna, Kogi and Zamfara states, which, by the way, we've told you some governors have intended to join the suit perhaps before the end of the day and the end of the week as well. There's likely to be more and more seeing any statements from the presidency or the CBN. Although last week, Babakama's development, and of course bring you up to speed with them when next we come your way on the program. But that's how far we can go on today's edition tomorrow.